Today we will continue reading our passage from yesterday. We will identify more details in order to form a clear main idea. Our focus for reading today is to identify the key details in the text to form a main idea. Using the details in main idea, we will then create a summary of our text. Before we continue reading the last half of our text, let's refresh our memory about what we read yesterday. Yesterday we began reading about nature writer John Burroughs. His interest in nature caused him to create descriptive stories that allowed readers to share his experiences. His story, The Chipmunk, follows a chipmunk emerging from hibernation. His traits seem almost human, as he seems friendly. Now that we refreshed our memory, let's continue reading the last half of our text. As we remember, we were reading an excerpt from John Burroughs' story, The Chipmunk. Paragraph 10. Burrough now develops his main character, the chipmunk, by describing its actions. Note, though, that Burroughs, as the storyteller, is part of the story too. I was much amused one October in watching a chipmunk carry nuts and other food into his den. He had made a well-defined path from his door out through the weeds and dry leaves into the territory where his feeding ground lay. The path was a crooked one. It dipped under weeds, under some large, loosely piled stones, under a pile of chestnut posts, then followed the remains of an old wall. Going and coming, his motions were like clockwork. He would pause a breath with one foot raised, slip quickly a few yards over some dry leaves, pause again by a stump beside a path, rush across the path to the pile of loose stones, go under the first and over the second, gain the pile of post, make his way through that, survey his course a half moment from the other side of it, and then dart on to some other cover, and presently beyond my range, where I think he gathered acorns, as there were no other nut-bearing trees than oaks near. In 4 or 5 minutes, I would see him coming back, always keeping rigidly to the course he took going out, pausing at the same spots, darting over or under the same objects, clearing at a bound the same pile of leaves. There was no variation in his manner of proceeding all the time I observed him. Now let's take a look at our details and a mini main idea before we finish off the last portion of our text. I like in paragraph 10 where we find that Burroughs, although he's the author of these texts, he always likes to include himself in these stories as well. Again, this is a way for us to understand his observations and experiences. Then in paragraph 12, we're back to the chipmunk story. Here we understand the process that the chipmunk goes through to find food. So we know that he takes this path and he's trying to find this feeding ground or, where he goes to eat. I really liked paragraph 14. That was just such a very detailed and descriptive way to just say how, the chipmunk moved about through this area. So I liked where it said, he rushed across the path, he was passing the pile of stones or dry leaves. That was just a very nice detailed way of him saying, that the chipmunk was moving about in order to cross the side where he can gather these acorns. So based off all of that information, my short main idea just for paragraphs 10 through 15 say, John Burroughs describes how a chipmunk works hard gathering acorns from his feeding ground. Let's now continue finishing our text. Paragraph 16. A good storyteller must do more than create appealing characters. Burroughs fills his writing with drama. It is the natural excitement found in the wild. In the next passage, Burroughs sees a cat also observing the chipmunk. He describes the action of the predator and the prey. He further engages the reader by wondering what the cat and the chipmunk will do. One summer day, I watched a cat for nearly a half hour trying her arts upon a chipmunk, then sat upon a pile of stone. Evidently, her game was to stalk him. She had cleared half the distance, or about 12 feet, that separated the chipmunk from a dense Norway spruce, when I chanced to become a spectator of the little drama. There sat the cat, crouched low on the grass, her big yellow eyes fixed upon the chipmunk, and there sat the chipmunk at the mouth of his den, motionless, with his eyes fixed upon the cat. For a long time neither moved. Will the cat bind him with her fatal spell? I thought. Sometimes her head slowly lowered and her eyes seemed to dilate, and I fancied she was about to spring, but she did not. The chipmunk finally quickly entered his den. The cat soon slunk away. Burroughs was a lifelong nature writer who kept his eyes, ears, and heart open. He observed the world around him. He brought out its energy in a personal way, giving it a deeper, emotional meaning. It is as if the reader is experiencing Burroughs' experience at the same time, making his views of the natural world ours too. Toward the end of his life, Burroughs wrote in The Summit of the Years about the time he had spent observing nature. The longer I live, the more my mind dwells upon the beauty and wonder of the world. I have loved the feel of the grass under my feet and the sound of running streams by my side. The hum of the wind in the treetops has always been good music to me, and the face of the fields has often comforted me more than the faces of men. I am in love with this world. I love in paragraph 16 where it mentions that Burroughs fills his writing with drama. And when I first read that, I was like, what? Drama? That's not a good thing. However, in this case, the drama that he's talking about are just the natural things that occur in nature. For instance, in this text, we then find that this cat is noticing or has noticed this chipmunk. And in paragraph 17, Burroughs really sets a mood or a tone based off the interaction of the cat and the chipmunk. It was almost like who's going to make the first move, where the cat is watching the chipmunk and the chipmunk is watching the cat. So I thought that was very cool. It kind of left me on the edge of my seat reading it, kind of trying to figure out what would happen next. Then now when we find that Burroughs towards the end of his life just really overall wanted to share his love of nature with everyone. So that sentence that I underlined just supports again our thinking previously that he just always wanted to share his love of nature with everyone. So now taking all of that, my next main idea for paragraph 16 through 21 say, Burroughs expresses his love for nature through dramatic writing that excites the reader and through a personal style that lets the reader feel what the narrator feels. Now that we finished reading the entire text, broken them down into smaller main ideas, I wrote down two different summaries that can relate to our text. Listen to both A and B. Then at the bottom, I would like you to pick which summary do you think is best, and I want you to explain your thinking. Really remember that with summaries, we want it to flow nicely like a story while also making sure that we are describing the overall text, really focusing on the main importance or the main topic of the entire text. Way to go! Now that we've read the entire text and identified its main idea as well as summarize it, tomorrow we will compare our reading to A Bird's Free Lunch.